money with open source software is that type of thing. How to use OpenOffice, etc., etc. It's if you look at, like I say, this isn't something that people listening to this show can say, oh yeah, I'm not sure that's right. Just go down to your news agents and have a look. It's on the covers. There's all sorts of topics being spoken about.
What about Windows magazines, if any?
I don't know about. To be honest, Roy, when you said
how
Windows,
to use the mouse or how to click the start menu. I think they could do. If you're a developer, suppose. Okay, even if you're a developer, usually they can recommend the Microsoft stack or something, but you don't have many different commonly used things to write about. You don't have a breadth of selections. You don't have many distros to review. You just have this release coming out like once in 5 years, once in 3-4 years. And then that's it. You've reviewed the operating system. Nothing changes. Well, there is maybe a service pack, and you talk about how many things break when you install it. And I don't trade. Well, they could talk about games or applications for it, but that's not about Windows. It's just about games. And then you have all the games the games magazines, which don't really talk about operating systems. They just talk about the games, because usually the games don't have the window decorations. They just go into full screen mode and just straight on.
Well, just sorry to throw something in very quickly. A bit of sad news. Gordon's just come into the channel. We started recording today, and Gordon wasn't in the channel, and he's just popped in. So, hello, Gordon. Hopefully, we can get another episode out this week, time permitting, with Gordon back again, because it always makes a nice episode to have all three of us here doing it properly. So, sorry, Gordon, you missed out, and I'm seeing on the IRC channel now, so I think you'll get a gist of what we've been talking about. Sorry, Roy. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
When I was a kid, I was about 8 years old, and the way the magazines are being pushed sometimes in schools, or trying to get kids onto all kinds of magazines, Nature and computers or whatever. I grew up on games magazines, actually.
So did I, yeah. Crash, Sinclair User, can't think of the other one. Sinclair User. Yeah, Sinclair User and Crash were the two magazines I used to read. They were for the Spectrum range of computers. And I think
They tell the difference back then between a magazine of a given year and the magazine which came 2 years later, perhaps, based on the graphics and the performance of the games. And these days, even though I don't play games anymore, I think you don't really see much change in terms of the more polygons or something.
No, I mean, I think I used to be able to say hand on heart wasn't much of a gamer. Unfortunately, I've recently, thanks to the family getting a keen interest in it, been getting into my PlayStation rather too much. But I mean, I think from what I've gleaned from my very vague gaming usage over the last few months is that it doesn't seem that there's been major strides in graphics in the games, apart from everything's got a bit sharper, gone up to high definition, and etc. etc. But I think there's more things going on. You've got some very advanced physics engines now, some very, very complex routines running there, which wouldn't have been able to be previously done years back. And I think the games as a whole, until you look up closely, look very much the same as they did a few years back, first-person shooters. Like I say, with an extra bit of sharpness, an extra lighting effect. But I think where the games have really got on in strides is the realism, if you want to call it realism, in a game where you're based on a...
There is a lot of parallels between films now, and I think, because in the past you didn't have any audio in films, you had this added, and now these days you can see the templates by which they construct the films. They look at the old films and they try to put the love story using the same phases, but they hope you don't see the original things that they try to sort of remaster or redo using today's fashion and things like that.
I'll tell you something just very, very interesting. Well, I found it was very interesting, and that was I had the opportunity to watch Dead Space. It was it's a film about that led on to a computer game. I think that's the history behind it. Anyway, I recently played the demo for the game Dead Space 2, and that was given away free on the front cover of a magazine. And it's funny that even though this movie I think was made in 2008, the CGI on the game is better than the film, and so playing the game actually looks more appealing and looks more complex than the film did, which I thought was quite amusing, considering that this was supposed to be a a film title. But I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah.
I think it does go to show though how the lines now are getting blurred between film media and software.
It's to do a lot with the investment in technologies too. One of the things about, and I know you don't like this film, but Avatar was a case of yeah, sorry, yeah, I really apologize. The film was involved in trying some new things. Usually use a certain template, whether it's a game engine or a certain studio with certain, like, I don't know, ropes and effects and things like that, which are kind of stock things. You take them off the shelves, you just say, oh, we want an explosion here, we want a flipping car, and you have the documentations about how to do that. It's nothing new, nothing too exciting. Of course, once in a while you have these films with a new effect nobody has seen before. Usually, it used to be usually CGI, and later on you have things like 3D and glasses and things like that. With games now, in the past the gameplay would change. Before you had polygons, you had to really think about how to present the character. Is it an overview, or is it a kind of a before you had 3D and you had the models of 3D and actually how to draw vectors in 3D and try to move things around, you had a different representation of who you are on the screen. In the case of Tetris, you are supposedly, the brick. You have the brick and you're flipping yourself, you flip things. That's the way you're supposed to think. And these days, you are a person in a game and you're looking around and using the mouse to kind of do things. So the way they construct the games is mostly to do with art. It's mostly to do with writing a script, then doing the polygons and using some program to try and do a kind of an offline ray tracing thing to make it look very realistic without actually doing the ray tracing in real time. And that's how they make games now. They just they just do placements of things, just like in the film. They just put the actors and make them behave in certain ways, instead of thinking about what is the challenge, what do I do with these, how do I get points? Well, points usually means like shooting people these days, I think, in some form or another, especially the big sellers as far as games concerned. But
I mean, if we just interject, I have to suffer a lot of children's television, unfortunately, because my young lad is loving the Disney Channel. But you look at some of the shows like Agent Oso, Handy Manny, and all this, and they're all CGI, and you can tell that they're made rather simply. Gone are the days where you'd have to draw and colour in each individual cell and then put them together and animate them. And it's all very made in a very generic way. Like I say, so Mickey Mouse, Clubhouse, they're all made very much the same way. And I think now we're at a stage whereby people really don't get that impressed or excited by special effects, because we've now got the technology where I can change a Boeing 747 into a three-headed serpent which gobbles up all of London, which morphs into a planet which speeds off at light speed. There's no sort of real challenge anymore in terms of special effects, because we can just do whatever we like. There's no limits. It's really just your imagination now that's holding you back, not maybe the technology. In the days of Star Wars and those type of movies where you had to make something look convincing with a bit of plastic and a bit of papier-mâché, those days are long gone. And now, like I say, the only real limit is not so much the technology used to create these things, but just your own imagination. And I think that's where a lot of the skill has now been lost, because people seem to make and release media which isn't so much the case of good storytelling. It's more of a case of let's throw as many special effects in and throw all this mud at the wall and hoping a bit sticks and people will buy the movie and love it. And that's what, to me, things like Avatar, which is a tired old story, which I couldn't stand. Unfortunately, the wife loved it.
With Wolves, or you can compare it to all kinds of combination of genres, and the way they construct the films, they have the subdivision into, like, say, horror films and drama and comedies, and then you have these subdivisions of each one of them and what the story is supposed to be composed of to have the catharsis of the in the story and everything else. And it's just recipes of films, and it's very obvious which ones you take.
And this is why, in my view, Hollywood is now pushing for the 3D, the push to 3D, because they've run out of things to sell, because everything is just there is no surprises anymore, for what for want of better description.
Yeah,
but there is no surprises anymore, so they push 3D.
People like to say they went to something unusual, but without actually describing it in technical terms, without, they just talk about who the character was, what the life story was, or whatever. So if you go to Avatar and say, I was wearing these glasses,